Although Krampus seems to accept his apology, nope, you gotta go too. He
Bro.
tosses Max into the fiery pit as hell, as well as hell. And this is the
Yeah,
fiery pit. Yep.
it is hell.
Hello, friends. I'm Anderson Marchak,
And I'm Ricardo Segura.
and we are the Panel Bros. Welcome to the panel.
Welcome to the panel. Yeah.
Well, here we are.
Oh yeah.
As of this recording, it is December 2024, so we are in Christmas season, and we promised we'd do a few Christmas movie breakdowns, so that brought us to our next one here. It was directed by Michael Dougherty. I'm always bad when I see that last name, Dougherty. Yeah. Released December the 5th of 2015. Today, the Panel Bros are going to be doing a breakdown for Krampus.
So excited, bro. So excited. I mean, look, this movie's already in my Christmas rotation. So when we were discussing possible movie ideas, this was one of like my top two. I was like, oh, I would love to discuss Krampus and have us go over it. I'm a huge fan of blending genres. So again, you had a Christmas movie, comedy, horror. So I was like, why not? And it has so much fun with itself. And that's another thing too. Is like it's one of those movies that just has a lot of fun and great cast. And we're gonna break all that stuff down. I got to see this in theaters, so I was very happy. And I remember walking out after seeing it for the first time and said, that's gonna make the Christmas rotation. And it has every year since. I don't go a single year without watching it.
Well, for those of you that tune into us, you know that we're no strangers to horror here on the channel. So,
Oh yeah.
for me, it was fine. You know, to do the breakdown for this, I didn't watch it until many years later, due to you, Ricardo,
Yes.
recommending it actually.
So much fun.
So, yeah, it knows what type of movie it's trying to be, and we're gonna get into that as we do the breakdown here. A lot of familiar faces, so that's what made this an
Dude.
easy watch for me. A lot of familiar
The
faces.
the fact, look, I'm gonna gas her up. Anytime I see Toni Collette in
Yeah,
anything, I'm in. And I remember seeing the trailer and being like, hold on, like, what's this Krampus movie? It looks silly, it looks fun, it's got horror elements. And I'm like, it's got Toni Collette. Like, I'm in. I'm a huge fan of Adam Scott as well. So I was like,
yeah,
yeah, bro, like I'm all in with this cast. So yeah, it's got some very familiar faces. And I was like, oh, you know what? It's gonna be a good time.
yeah. Alrighty, well, let's get into it here.
Yeah.
We have our opening scene, and you hear it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas play.
Mm-hmm.
And you think it's going to be a nice scene, but it isn't. People
No.
are shopping, running around, trampling one another. Just a call back to old school Black Friday, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the parents trying to get the kids to smile for Santa. And of course, they are miserable and crying all over the place. The customers are nuts. The workers are miserable. And then we shift to a Christmas play where we see a fight between the kids. And this is our introduction to the Engel family. So that's our opening scene here.
It is kind of wild, and this has nothing to do with the movie itself. It is kind of wild though that there's going to be people, very young people today, kids growing up, that are going to look at this intro and go, is that what it was like? Was it like that? And absolutely. So for a movie in 2015 to have this as an opening made sense. Like if you saw this in a movie today, again with a much younger audience, they might be like, I've never seen people behave that way. And it's like, no, it was like that. The bonus here was they obviously made it like extra comedic. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you saw security tasing people in this
Yeah.
opening. And I'm just like, what is happening? Like people are being tased, people are fighting. It's done in slow motion. We got our music playing in the backdrop. You've got fights breaking out. You have Beth, who we're going to meet soon, is the sister of our lead character, Max. And like she's just like so entertained by this fight that's happening on stage. She's got her phone out. She's recording. I believe it's a phone. It might even be a camera. This is 2015. It might actually be a camera.
True.
But she's just legitimately recording, and it's just like sheer pandemonium of what, again, the opposite of what you would expect from this song playing on a holiday movie But believe it or not, this is what it was like at some points.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think it's a trope at this point
Mhm.
because this is I would certainly hope so. This is not what shopping's like anymore.
Nope.
Due to I guess I want to say online. Online
Yeah.
shopping's kind of taken away that appeal of people having to rush to the store anymore. But I'm
Mhm.
okay with this trope though because it's a
It's fun.
callback. This is how things used to be, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think yeah, I think I especially, I can only speak for myself, but I think we appreciate because like you said, like there's a nostalgia that we're familiar with. Like for us, like yeah, that's what it was like. As you mentioned, online kind of took that away with Cyber Monday, and now you have like week-long Black Friday sales, and now you have sales that start first thing in the morning, where back in the day it was like you had to be there at midnight. So it's always nice. It's kind of like a staple in history. Again, it was pretty chaotic and not the best of times, but to throw it into a holiday movie like this to kind of show us what it was at one point, there's a fun little nostalgia to it.
3 days before Christmas, the Engel family, parents Tom and Sarah, and daughter Beth, son Max, and Tom's mother Omi, they prepare for the holidays. Despite his family's dysfunctionality, Max still believes in Santa Claus and writes him a letter. Sarah's side of the family comes for Christmas, including her sister Linda, Linda's husband Howard, their children Howie Jr., Stevie, Jordan, and baby Chrissy, their bulldog Rosie, and Sarah and Linda's aunt Dorothy.
Mm,
Oh Lord. So
exactly.
these people are awful. The in-laws,
Yes.
just immediately you can tell. And then, they're being very rude upon entering the
Mhm.
house, saying all these nasty things. And then Aunt Dorothy comes in and she just takes the cake.
Yeah, it's again, this was I guess it's somewhat relatable because I know a lot of people like it's become a joke at this point and a meme about spending time with the family at the holidays and the arguments and the fights and the picking at one another. So again, it's quite relatable to a lot of people, and you get the gist right away. Where you have the Engel family kind of like, you even have the grandmother making cookies and whatnot, and Max is excited about Santa Claus and everything else, and they're still setting up photos, and Sarah's making like a legitimate beautiful meal. Like they're going all out and about. And then you have the other family roll up and immediately, like you said, just like nasty remarks, very condescending towards everyone. Like whether it's Tom, whether it's Sarah, whether it's Max, like that whole side of that family is just so obnoxious. And being that we know the plot of the movie, I was like, listen, I'm gonna need everything bad to happen to this family right here.
Right.
Like I was like, protect the Engel family at all costs. I said, but whatever is going to happen, let it happen to this family. And again, this is still very early on in the movie, so I was under the impression like, oh, if anything does happen, they're probably going to be the ones that suffer the most. And things might not be that way, but yeah, you learn right away. And I love Max's character, man. I think Max is awesome, and like he even mentions that the reason he got into a fight that we had talked about in the beginning was, there was other kids trying to ruin it for smaller
Right.
children. He was like, oh, like they're trying to say Santa isn't real. And like, that Max kind of has that idea of like, maybe it's not, but he's grasping it. And I love that aspect about Max, that he's kind of like, no, like, we still have tradition. We have to do this, right? Like we have to wrap presents together, and we have to watch this movie, and we have to do this. And it's just I don't know. I really appreciate Max a lot, So when he writes the letter to Santa, and we'll break down what's in that letter because it's awesome. It just I really really like the character a lot.
And the sisters, Sarah and Linda, they talked. And why did you invite Aunt Dorothy? Well, no one should be alone for Christmas. It's like, well, you could have warned me.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is she would have been alone, and she's the
Mhm.
most rude out of everybody.
Yep.
So way to show
Just,
your appreciation,
just like, wow, you did all this. What other concoction are you coming up with now? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And it's like, wow, like, yeah, which I was already like, it was grinding my gears very early on.
Max wants to maintain family traditions, but tensions among his relatives sap their Christmas spirit. When his cousins mockingly read out his letter to Santa, Max lashes out, yelling that he hates both his family and his belief in Christmas. His father attempts to comfort him by telling him that even though the holidays are chaotic, he should always love his family and gives him back his letter to Santa. In a fit of anger, Max tears up the letter and tosses it out the window, whereupon it is swept up into the sky.
Oh yeah.
So the cousins, they're
Mhm.
fighting with one another here, and obviously they're picking on Max.
Yeah.
And they found his letter, and it's supposed to be something personal, so they're teasing him, reading it out loud. I said here I was getting some Home Alone vibes.
Yeah.
Like where Kevin is just tormented by all of his relatives.
Yeah.
However, I don't recall in Home Alone anyone getting any comeuppance.
No.
None of his relatives get any comeuppance. He even makes up with which one? Buzz, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he makes up with them at the end of the movie, but they treat Kevin awful. So here I'm like, I hope this isn't the same way where we're watching this and these
I,
cousins don't get any comeuppance. Yeah.
yeah, I was very happy to see Max actually like stand up for himself and like, it shouldn't have come to that point, but like Max just lunges at them. And like it's a really sad scene because as they read the letter, you realize that even though they treat Max so horribly, it was just one of those things where like he wished for Santa to help their family, to help their parents. And they're kind of giving us breadcrumbs a little bit that maybe things aren't going so well for that family, whether it's financially, we're not entirely too sure, but just like, hey, could you help them out around the holidays? And then even help them out. Like Max was like wishing for really great things for everyone, regardless of how they've treated him. So it was really sad that they were being that malicious and that mean. And they even started to become triggered by what was in the letter because it was kind of just like, like, how dare you think this about us? And yeah, it just turned into a big fight, and he loses his cool, and he does the whole like, I hate this. I just wanted all of us to be together for Christmas, but forget it. I hate it. I hate you all, and I hate Christmas. And you have Tom just trying to do his best to fix this, and Max is just like, no, I'm absolutely done with this, and just destroys the letter and throws it out the window. And from that moment on, we know, like, okay, this is it. Like, this is going to set off this is going to set it into motion.
We have a plot now, right?
Yep. Like, this is it. I was like, I understand Max. I feel it. Again, I like Max a lot, so I was like, no, I feel why. I feel him here.
Later that night, a severe blizzard engulfs the town, causing a power outage. When Beth ventures out to check on her boyfriend, a large horned creature chases her. He hides beneath a delivery truck, but the creature leaves a she hides beneath the delivery truck, but the creature leaves a jack-in-the-box which attacks her. When Beth does not return home, Tom and Howard go out to search for her. They find her boyfriend's house in ruins with the chimney split open and a large goat-like hoof prints. Tom narrowly saves Howard from an unseen monster in the snow. So this is where we start getting introduced to our creature, so to speak. So Beth's out there, and she sees the creature just jumping from house to house, and she does the sensible thing. She screams and starts running for her life because she's not sticking around to see what this thing is,
Yeah.
And to build the tension, we have the trope of her just hiding, and we don't get to see it, not fully just yet, but they, he leaves the jack in the box, and unfortunately it looks like, Beth meets her end here. And then we shift forward to Howard and Tom going out, and Howard was bragging about his guns and protecting your family and all that business, but the guns actually came in handy when they were out there, and to Howard's surprise, Tom is pretty brave,
bro. Listen,
while he's out there.
Tom, look, Howard tried to mock Tom earlier in the movie because Tom used to be a Boy Scout. You know, he used to be in the Eagle Scouts, and he said, "Oh, what did you guys do? Like made baskets?" He was like, "No, we have survival skills." And in this moment, we get to see it. Like we get to see, like, no, like Tom is Tom is brave and ready to throw down if he has to throw down in a very scary situation. This whole sequence of being introduced to Krampus and walking through the town, like, first of all, there's a blizzard outside and they have no power. And Beth's like, oh, she wants to go to her boyfriend's house. And they're kind of like, all right, you can go. The dad in me was like, I don't know, man. That weather looks really bad out there. But they're thinking he's only a few blocks away, no big deal. And I said, okay, I can kind of understand. You know what I mean? You know, she is getting older. It's all right. But when we see Krampus for the first time and he lands on the roof, the sound design, everything about it was just so awesome. Because I was like, oh my God, like we're seeing him now. But again, they're only showing him to a certain degree. We're not really seeing him, you know, up front, not too close. So when he's hopping from house to house and you start to realize that everyone in this town is missing, I'm like, oh my God, did everyone meet their end already? Like, how does this work? I'm not entirely too sure. I'm like, are they in some sort of, are they like trapped in a bubble that looks like the town? Like, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like, where is everybody at? And unfortunately she does meet her demise and she's under the car with the Jack in the Box. And again, I like that for the first character who essentially bites the dust. Like, we don't see anything because less is more. Like, I like that. It's kind of like, oh, we don't really know what's happening. We don't know what's going on. Is it taking her away? Is it eating her? Like, we don't know. But Tom and Howard are going out there, and like you said, like, luckily for us, Howard has a gigantic shotgun, and he's got this, like, I think it's like a 357 Magnum. Like, it's a big piece. And they investigate the house. You see the hooves, and it's like, hey man, like, what kind of goat walks on its hind legs? And I'm like, I'm getting excited. Like I'm like, oh man, like we got a creature feature in here. Like I'm thrilled. Like, let's go. And then we get some Tremors action because there's something in the snow.
Yeah.
We have no idea what it is. Again, we don't see it. We don't have to see it. Takes a huge chunk out of Howard's leg, and Tom does what he has to do. Tom steps up, grabs the revolver, opens gunfire, and next thing we know, we're back at the house.
And I think ever since The Thing, whenever I see something like this in the snow, I think about The Thing.
I love it. I love it.
You know, forever. A horror movie set in the snow. You know, we're going to think about The Thing.
Oh, and we got to mention, like, Howard has like this gigantic tank of a truck.
Yeah.
And when they leave the house to come back, that thing's torn to shreds. Like, it's completely torn to shreds. So they have to walk all the way back in that insane cold. But continue.
Yeah. They return home, board up the windows, and Howard stands guard while everyone sleeps. As Howard eventually falls asleep, a large hook with a living gingerbread man attached lures Howie Jr. to the chimney. When he takes a bite, he is dragged up the chimney despite the family's efforts to save him. So we already saw something happen to Beth earlier, and now we're seeing Howie Jr. And actually, Howie Jr. is probably the most tolerable out of all the kids.
Yeah, he doesn't talk.
Yeah, he just likes to eat. You know,
that's it. Howard says that he's like, hey man, I'm gonna get him into a football program and everything else. But yeah, he just doesn't talk.
So, but unfortunately, we find out here the whole no kids rule right out the window. So,
bro, the first two people that bite the dust are kids.
Yes.
And I remember being like, wait a minute. Like, I was like, hold on. Like, that's not gonna happen. Nope. First two are kids.
Like, in horror movies, they'll maybe do like one kid, maybe two kids at the most, but like, no, we're going for the kids, you know, first thing. So, and it's a shame here for Howie Jr. because clearly food is his weakness. Yeah. And the evil gingerbread man, it's kind of funny but disturbing at the same time. And then it gets followed by this great bit here where Toni Collette's character goes to grab his legs and then she starts going up the chimney. They're like, you know, grab her, you know, but Howie Jr. right up the chimney.
Yeah, and Toni Collette, like, again, is an incredible actor, and her reaction to seeing the gingerbread man inside the chimney is incredible. Like, she's going up the chimney and she looks up for a second and she sees the gingerbread man, and her her body language and her scream, it's just incredible. And she's just begging them to pull her down. Oh man, this was so fun.
So Omi explains that the creature hunting them is Krampus, an ancient demon who punishes those who have lost the Christmas spirit. When Omi was a child, her family and community lost their spirit due to the hardships of the war in Europe. Omi also lost hope and wished for her parents to be taken away, summoning Krampus. He and his helpers dragged everyone except her to literal hell,
Yes.
leaving behind a belt-shaped bauble with his name on it. So
Yeah.
off the air, Ricardo, you mentioned to me about the stop motion in this
Loved it,
movie.
dude.
So as a tool for the flashbacks, Dougherty goes for stop motion, almost like a claymation type situation.
Yeah, and I was a big fan because obviously, for Christmas, that was a huge staple of the 60s and the 70s. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, just those types of movies.
Right.
And you remember like getting excited to see them as kids. I still watch them to this day with my kids. Like we put on the stop motion animation and we watch those, and it's like, yeah, look how fun these were. So I thought it was a really, really cool and unique way to still connect to the Christmas vibe, because they could have easily done a flashback, or just have the scene be exposition, to be honest, if they wanted to. Or they could have just done like, a traditional filming, and they were like, no, let's tie this into Christmas still. So I love that aspect of it, and it just added to the Christmas feel overall. And the story's tragic, man. It's tragic. Again, she found herself in a similar situation where everyone around her just kind of lost sight, and people were struggling. Like her situation was a little different because people were struggling, people were hungry, people were starving, and people were just fighting for food and whatnot. And I think the saddest part of the memory is like her parents are fighting and she's trying so hard to get them to just come together, and she offers her toy and like her mom breaks it, and it just breaks my heart. And when Krampus shows up, like it's just like, yeah, like you said, he literally drags everyone to hell, turns back, gives her a wink, and leaves that for her, that Krampus bell, if you will, and just kind of, this is a reminder of, what happens when you lose faith in the holiday. And it was just like, what a sequence. Like I loved it.
Yeah. It just we needed some type of backstory, and Omi's been we've been kind of suspicious of the character anyway. She's grandma, she's sweet, she's speaking this foreign language, and then randomly, oh, I can speak English,
Yeah.
And Dorothy, of course, I knew it.
Yeah, like because when stuff starts going down, she knows what's happening. Like she's immediately making sure the fire stays hot. She's being like, just with the actor, you can see in her eyes, like she's giving off that vibe, like she's pretty sure she knows what's happening. She's not going to send anyone to a panic just yet, but she's making sure like the fire stays burning. So you were just waiting for her to give this story, like she knows something.
So obviously Howard, everyone's skeptical, but especially Howard. He's like, oh, what are we going to find out? The evil Easter Bunny's going to come get us soon. So Howard's ready to go out with his bum leg, but he has the shotgun because obviously his son just got dragged up the chimney, And when Tom tries to stop him, he pulls the shotgun on Tom and says, why are you going to try to stop me? So when I first saw this, I was like, whoa, this is a bit of an overreaction here. He's trying to help you out.
Yeah.
And you're pulling the gun on him. But you have to think about it. His son just went up the chimney, and he's not he's not thinking clearly. His main thought is, I need to go save my son. You need to get out of my way.
Yeah, it's a good sequence because nobody's wrong. Like, I can understand what this must sound like to Howard, right? To hear such a ridiculous story. And on top of that, while they're having this story, his son has been taken. So, he pulls the gun on Tom, and it's very much a reaction. Like Tom's trying to grab, and he's like, I'm starting to like you, Tom. I really am. But like, you got to let me do this. And Tom has this great response. Like, there's more kids here to protect. Tom already has it in his mind that like, he's not saying like the kid is dead, but he's kind of being like, all right, it's like Beth is gone. Like, it's not a situation where Tom is just like, oh, it's just your kid. No, Tom's daughter is gone. Tom has no idea, but Tom has put himself now in a situation where it's like, okay, Beth is gone. We're going to find her. Your son is gone. We will find him. But for right now, we have to protect the kids that are with us right now. And again, it's just that that level of understanding the situation, that Tom has. And again, it just puts Tom on a boss level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, you can't really be mad at Howard either. He's like, nope, I'm gonna go.
The family remains skeptical of the story, as we stated, from Omi, until the house is overrun by menacing toys emerging from the presence. Jordan is devoured by the Jack-in-the-Box Der Clown. Nasty. It swallows, Jordan whole. The family fends off the toys. Uh, an angel, a teddy bear, a robot, gingerbread men. They're getting blasted with the shotgun. It's chaos at this point. Until Krampus's dark elves leap in through the window, taking Howard, Dorothy, and Chrissy. So this is where I put down it felt like a B movie.
Yes.
And it's really wild here. But kudos to the actors for acting opposite either green screens or silly props, because they had to act like that prop was attacking them. I put down it felt a little like Gremlins.
Yeah, there's Gremlin vibes in there.
Yeah, felt like Gremlins. Linda has a really cool moment with the axe. She's chopping things up in the attic there. And then Aunt Dorothy has her moment with the shotgun. And then the elves, I don't know, whatever analogy you want to bring there, they kind of send things over the top. So we can break this down here. This is where they just finally lean in. You find out, all right, we know what type of movie we are.
Yep.
At this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, continue.
Oh no. For me, the standout was the disgusting design of the Jack-in-the-Box in the attic.
Oh, so good. This whole sequence was so fun and exciting, because we have almost like two levels of action that's happening here, right? You have Howard, who's battling gingerbread men, right? Which has more of a comedic take to it. It's gingerbread men. They're laughing. They're shooting a nail gun. And you have the situation with the dog. Like, it's a little bit more comedic, even though something, insane is happening. Where the attic is a little bit more frightening, because, again, that Jack-in-the-Box was horrifying in the best way. And it's a practical effect. Again, so when it's on screen, you know that it's in the room. You know that it's there. And the jaw opens up in like 3 places.
Yeah.
And it's just full of teeth. It reminded me almost of like a Pennywise situation where the jaw could unlock and it opens up and it just swallows this kid whole. And the parents just have to watch. And I think Tom drops the line, and there's great moments. Again, similar to The Thing. When you think of The Thing, one of the best lines is like, "You gotta be kidding me," right? Tom even has a line like that. It was like, oh, great. Like, it's just like what's happening? You know what I mean? The sheer chaos of it. And like you mentioned, they have to fight a rabbit teddy bear with like extremely sharp teeth. The angel was extremely freaky. Like, she was horrifying. She had claws for hands, a really long tongue. And then poor Tom is getting attacked by a robot, and he's being stabbed in the back numerous times. And Linda is just like, no, like, I'm going to save my child from this Jack-in-the-Box. And she grabs the axe and she tries to do it, but the Jack-in-the-Box does end up getting away. And Toni Collette's character takes the guns, just starts shooting the robot, the bear, except the angel, etc., etc. It's just the whole piece is just like absolute chaos. You know what I mean? And then, as you mentioned, like, they go downstairs, dude, and the elves show up.
Yeah.
And as fun as this was, and it bothered me then, and it bothers me now, when they take the baby, I don't like that. I was like, guys, that's a little dark. I was like, guys, like, hold on. Like, they're screaming, where's Chrissy? Where's the baby? And the elf, and I'm a softie, man. Like, the baby's crying. So like, they got the elf has the baby and looks back and takes on the baby. And I was like, no, we've crossed the line. Like, I was like, wait a minute, guys. We crossed the line. No, the baby has to be safe. We don't take the baby. And they took the baby. And then Dorothy is there, just kind of like, I'll see you guys in hell. Like, and they wrap her and they take her out, and she's like, wee! wee, and it's very comical.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then,
yeah. I heard a slide whistle, I want to say.
yeah, and it's like wee, and it's very comical. And again, like they remind us, and again, Tom is just like, oh God, and Howard is just like, I'm done, dude. He was like, you know what? I'm done with this fairy tale nonsense. Jumps on the Jack in the Box, and they drag him out too. And I'm like, this is insanity. But then, as you know, the elves are laughing, having a good time, and something else is coming, and they're like, all right, we got to clear out of here.
Yeah. Oh, I did put this down. For the angel, I got some Tiffany vibes from Child's Play.
Oh, I can see that.
A
Yeah,
little
I
bit
can
of
see
Tiffany
that.
vibes, you know?
I can see that.
Alrighty.
There's about to be a standoff in this movie.
There is. That's what's coming up here.
Yep, there it is.
Tom leads the rest of the family to an abandoned snowplow on the streets. Omi stays behind to distract Krampus, who finally reveals himself to the family.
Oh, yeah.
He emerges from the fireplace and attacks her with his bag of toys. Outside, Tom, Sarah, and Linda are dragged under the snow by the snow monster, which we never see, while Stevie is captured by the Dark Elves. So this is, at this point, it's just, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone. Everyone is getting taken out one by one, and Max is the only one left.
This is the part of the movie where I feel like it's not, I wouldn't say it's a significant shift, but for me, this is where it started emotionally hitting me. Because again, as silly and as comical as this movie is, the family themselves are in a life and death situation, and they're being picked off one by one. And when Omi decides to stay, and it's the first time in the movie that we've heard Tom almost panic, kind of lose it, because that's his mom. And they walk outside, and she slams the door, and he's begging his mom to open the door. He's like, Mom, please, you can't do this, Mom. And I'm like, okay, all right, we're getting the emotional stuff now. Okay. And she stays behind, and she we're waiting for Krampus to appear, and he does, man, and he looks incredible. Again, we'll talk about how he looks later, but he looks fantastic. And I honestly thought he wasn't going to touch her. I thought that was going to be the deal of like, oh, he remembers her, and he was like, I spared you once. This has nothing to do. Like, I don't know what I was expecting the first time, but I thought she was gonna make it. I was like, oh no, like she's gonna be like, no, and he's gonna be like, I remember you, and he was gonna move on. He's like, but your family's done. So when he opens the bag and all the toys get her, I was like, oh, Omi's gone.
Nope.
Okay, we just lost Omi. All right. And then when we get outside, and look, the director knew what he was doing, because now the score's coming in and it's swelling, and Tom is shooting at this Tremors-like beast under the snow that we can't see. Tom is aware that there's only so many rounds that he has left. Tom is also aware that the best thing he can do is slow this thing down. And the score swells, and he goes, listen, I need you to keep going. And I was like, Tom, don't do this. I was like, Tom, don't do this. I was like, he plays such a great dad, Adam Scott. And I was like, Tom, please don't do this. And he's like, I need you to go. I need you to keep going. Okay. And he hugs him, and he goes, I love you. And he hugs his son. He goes, I love you, buddy. And I was getting choked up, and I was like, nah, man, don't do this. And they go. And obviously he opens fire until he has no more rounds left. And he just closes his eyes in full acceptance, and he gets dragged down. And you're like, okay, this is going to buy time. And it doesn't. Nope. It doesn't buy any time. And then Linda gets grabbed. And again, the music's hitting, and they're screaming, and her daughter is trying to hold her, and she's like, Mom, please don't. And even Tony's Tony's grabbing the kid, and she's putting her in the car. And then Tony gets grabbed. Sarah, I should say. Yeah. Sarah gets grabbed, and you're like, no, like this, like we're losing. And she goes, I'm sorry, baby, I love you. And she gets dragged, and Max is crying, and everyone's screaming, and they're trying so hard and desperately to get out. He's trying to turn on the vehicle. He goes, I don't even know how to drive this. We only have a hybrid. So we get a nice little joke in there. The elves take his cousin, and now we're at the situation where Max at this point is the only one left. And now it's going to get like really, really interesting.
Krampus confronts Max. So we have a showdown here.
Yeah.
Another one. And gives him a bauble. That's what they're calling it. Bauble. A bauble wrapped in a piece of his discarded letter. Realizing that he was responsible for Krampus's coming, Max chases after the demon and confronts him at the edge of a fiery pit.
Oh,
Max begs for Stevie to be spared and offers himself up as a sacrifice. Now, at this point, the entire family is gone.
yep.
It's just Max and Stevie left. Krampus refuses and tosses Stevie into the pit. Max sincerely apologizes for losing his spirit, tears streaming down his face, and Krampus pauses. Although Krampus seems to accept his apology, nope, you gotta go too. He tosses Max into the fiery pit as hell, as well as hell. And this is the fiery pit.
It's
yep,
it is hell. And
yeah.
I remember this. I do remember. I remember being in the theater, and Max is like stepping to Krampus, dude. Like Krampus is like, here it is. This is your reminder. You will be spared. Just understand this is what happens. And he walks away, and Max is like, no, we're not going to end like this. And he throws it. And I believe you said it's pronounced bauble. It's a bauble.
Yeah, bauble.
Okay. So he throws it, and he calls him an a-hole. He's like, hey, a-hole. And he's like, give me back my family. And he's doing this, and he throws it. And Krampus has like his head down, and he comes up with this like growl. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? And he tugs, and he goes up to him, and he's like, listen, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Like, take me instead. And you think it's gonna happen. Like I didn't think he was gonna take Max, but I thought, oh my god, this is gonna work, because again, the director's really smart. The elves stopped laughing. No one's laughing anymore. No one's cackling. You don't hear the cries from hell anymore, because you heard people screaming. You don't hear any of that. Like, it's all calm. And the music and the score becomes very soft. And Max is crying, and you have Krampus who wipes a tear from his face.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is it. Like, no one's ever done this before. No one's ever offered this level, a sacrifice. No one's ever done that. And he's like, please. And all of a sudden, dude, Krampus just starts laughing.
Yeah.
And I remember going, oh my God, like there's no beating this thing. Like, no, this is it. And they throw Stevie in, and I was like, oh my God, like, this is it. It's over. And like, I still thought Max was going to be spared, though. I thought that was going to be the thing. Like, hey, look, I don't care what you got to offer, dude. She's going. But then he picks up Max, and he holds him over this pit of hell. And again, as you mentioned, he's like, I just wanted us to be together for Christmas. I wanted us to be happy. I wanted to be like it was. And he drops him into hell.
Nope.
And I remember being
no
like,
one is spared. Nope.
No
one's
I
making
remember
it out.
being like, this kid, what? So yeah, I loved it, though. I absolutely loved it. That's the direction that they took.
Yeah. And they could have faded to black there to fake everybody out.
Mhm.
They could have, because that's the
Yep.
way, we got to touch on it here. So at this point in the movie, we finally see Krampus's face, and he
Yes.
looks like a demonic Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild. I mean, he's got the goat body, because that's, but the face, it's like this demonic Santa Claus, real twisted.
Yeah, I love it, because it almost feels like it's a demonic entity wearing a Santa mask, because it's somewhat what's the word, like when you leave something out for too long, misshaped. It looks misshapen.
Yeah.
Like the jaws over here, it looks like something that he wears, and because it doesn't move, it doesn't show expression, it's one solid expression the whole time. And from a technical perspective, that's a really smart idea, because then that's something easier to make. It's just a mask. And then you'll see that there is somewhat of a distance between the Santa face and the demonic entity behind it, because they give us close up of its eyes.
Yeah.
And we do get to see a tongue come out of the mask and go back in. But it was so awesome and twisted, because again, I wasn't sure, based from the posters and the marketing, what Krampus was going to look like. And the idea that this demonic entity mocks the idea of Santa in itself by wearing what looks like a very ugly, disturbing look of what Santa Claus is. It's a great look, man.
So they could have faded to black, but they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Max awakens in his bed on Christmas morning, and upon discovering his family alive and well, concludes what happened was just a nightmare. However, as they find Krampus's bauble among the presents, the family exchanges troubled looks, recalling memories of the horrific events. Almost like, did we all have the same dream? That whole
Mm-hmm.
trope. Or are we just not going to acknowledge this because we're just happy to be alive now? The house is shown through a magical surveillance snow globe, along with hundreds of others in a vast collection in Krampus's underworld lair in the mountains of Central Europe for him to monitor and spy on for having spared them. And that's our movie.
Bro.
So they give us a twist. You know, just when you think, all right, this is it, Krampus wins, everybody's gone. Nope.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I love the ending because they play with us, right? Because obviously, again, from a technical standpoint, you can tell that they're using like a dream lens or just in post, you know, created this dream-like silhouette to the sequences, to the scene. So when Max wakes up, I remember thinking, no. Obviously, it wasn't a dream, but I'm like, no, did they get spared? And he looks out the window and everything's okay. And he comes downstairs and no one has any recollection of anything. And I'm like, wait a minute. And I was like, okay, no, something's gonna mess with us, and I'm waiting for it. And everyone was kind of like, hey, let's open the gifts, let's do this, let's do that. And they're like, is everything okay? And he's like, yeah, I think I just had a bad dream. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. And he opens the first gift and the bauble's there. And little by little, each one of them starts to remember.
Right.
And to me, I was like, oh, like for a brief moment, Krampus was showing you what these holidays could be, what Christmas can be like with you all united in the Christmas spirit. And then when that bauble came in, he goes, but this is what will happen if you lose it again. And it was so great because they all acknowledge it. They all look at one another, but nobody says a word. Everyone's kind of like, okay, because there's no way that we all collectively shared the same nightmare. It's like, no, this happened. Somehow we've been spared. Max's sacrifice, in my opinion, and I've heard other people have a counter argument. It was like, no, I think they're trapped in a snow globe for all eternity and stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's fair enough. You know, like the director even said that, like he left it ambiguous, that like if you want to take that route, you could. But for myself and many, many, many others, you know, it's the idea of like being watched, especially because the song that is playing is like, you better be good for goodness sake. You better watch out, you know what I mean? Because Santa Claus is coming to town. You know, he knows when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. So you have this song about you like being watched. And I just love the idea that even though we've seen through Omi's story that like it wasn't a happy ending, Max's sacrifice, and you know, they tie into it earlier when Stevie asked, like, oh, what if you leave milk and cookies out for Santa? What if you do everything? Does that work? And she said, it's not really about that. It's about like what's in here. And she pointed to her chest, like what's in your heart. And I think that Max's sacrifice was so noble. It was so noble that he was willing to give his life in order to save those around him, even ones that were mean to him, in the spirit of Christmas. Like, it was a beautiful ending. So I absolutely love the ending. Because like you said, they could have very much been like, no, we're going super dark ending. Everybody loses. Krampus wins. You know, they could have done that. Absolutely. But again, and it also makes me happy because I feel like the movie throughout ties itself to Christmas traditions, Christmas films, Christmas animation. And I feel like this was a nice homage to Scrooge. The idea of like waking up in the morning, like, oh my God, like I didn't die. Like we're good. And I thought that it was a nice homage to that, where like Max and everyone there had to be scared beyond belief. I mean, to be fair, they all bit the dust. They were all gone. Without Max and that sacrifice, I don't think that they come back. But in a very Scrooge-like ending, it's like, hey, like, you know, Max was able to bring you back with this change and whatnot. So yeah, I love the ending. I love the ending a lot. It's like one of my favorites for Christmas.
So that brings us to our initial thoughts. And my initial thought upon this rewatch here was that the movie works as is. And we talked about it. It could have ended with Max going down to the pit. We could have went for the Debbie Downer ending.
Yep.
And that's fine. And then that would have been it.
Yeah.
You know? But I believe the movie works because of the twist.
Yes.
And it's one of the biggest tropes in all of film and television. It was all a dream, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what? I'm gonna give Doherty a pass here.
Mhm.
It was all a dream works here, you know. And
Yeah.
we don't know. Maybe it wasn't a dream. Maybe it was supernaturally. I'm giving you another chance type deal, you
Yeah.
know. So I'm okay with this because then not only Max but the whole family learns their lesson. You know,
Mhm.
you got to cherish what you have. It may not be perfect, but you have to cherish each other because it took you going through this life and death situation where everyone gets wiped out for you to realize it, but now you realize it, you know?
Yeah. It would have been interesting. I'm curious how many people, including myself, would have felt if they went with the Debbie Downer ending, you know, because there are movies where what's one? Ooh, Drag Me to Hell got a
Oh,
very down
yeah.
ending, a very down, and people love that movie. But because again, because I think the tone helps it. It's Sam Raimi, you know, doing a lot of fun Evil Dead shticks. There's some horror elements, obviously, but it's a fun movie as a whole. And then you have this extreme downer of an ending, and you're kind
Yeah.
of just like, wow, what a shocking ending. So you kind of have fun with it. This movie, I think, like you said, I think the way it ends benefits the movie as a whole. I think if the movie had that much of a darker ending, I might like it less. I don't think I'd dislike it, but I think I'd like it a little bit less because I think the twist is what makes the movie work. Because again, one, I didn't see it coming. You know, going to Debbie Downer ending, you know, I'm not saying you can predict it, but the movie shows you in the exposition that like this is how it usually ends. Like it usually ends with everybody losing. So if the movie would have ended like that, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's the trope. You know, if they make it, they'll always, you know, it always end this way. So I do like that he was like, you know, this is what we're gonna do, and like you said, like I like to believe that all of this did happen, and with this supernatural ability to kind of be like, all right, I'm gonna give you a second chance, but just know that I'm always going to be watching you now. I'm going to make sure, and I like that aspect, and I like that as the camera pans out, we see numerous homes. So it makes me think that like there is a way, to overcome it. And that is great because sometimes I think when the outcome is always meant to be bleak, you know what you're getting. But I like the idea that it's like, hey, like this can be overcome. You just have to be, you know, you have to really be heartfelt and mean it. But yeah, like rewatching this again, I was like, dude, I have such a good time with it again because the movie knows what it is. It has fun. It knows when to be comedic. It knows when to have some heartfelt moments, and like you know, it's always fun to have some messaging in there, especially in Christmas. Like you know, what is the meaning of Christmas? You know, like that sort of thing, and introduce it with everything else. So, you know, on a rewatch, I still have just as much fun as I did the first time.
Krampus is a low budget horror movie
Mhm.
and it had box office success. It was made for 15 million. That was the budget. And the box office was 61.5 million.
Yeah, I was
So
there.
it had some success there. Obviously it's a B movie, it's a horror movie, nothing during award season, but that's
Mhm.
fine. That's not what these types of movies are. You know,
No.
they know who they are, they know who their audience is. So
Mhm.
good on them. And let's take a look at some trivia here for Krampus. So they made it a point of having the film's first act be strictly a Christmas movie before having it turn towards horror and dark fantasy. So, and they did that, you know, throughout the movie. It just shifted back and forth between those vibes of we're making a Christmas movie, but it's dark, and then we're going to go back and forth here, you know.
Yeah, again, as I mentioned, like they kind of pay homage to Scream at the ending. The first portion of this movie is very much like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. The idea of family at the
Yeah.
house that you're not getting along with. It's a very traditional Christmas movie.
The family's ambiguous ending, excuse me, the movie's ambiguous ending, as you had said, Ricardo, has spawned two fan theories. So let's
Mhm.
take a look here. One, that the Engels and their family are trapped in the snow globe condemned to repeat Christmas morning for eternity in a twisted version of hell. So that's one. The other one here is the one that we like to lean on. They were given a second chance, and the snow globe is Krampus's means of watching over them. Although writer-director Michael Dougherty has refused to confirm which theory is true, the tie-in comic book Shadow of Saint Nicholas confirms that the happy ending is the true one. There we go.
That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need to cope, and I want a happy ending. So I'll take it. I'll take it.
The comic has the characters that didn't live resurrected without any hint of a twist, showing that Krampus is willing to give people a second chance as long as they prove they learned their lesson. Unlike his grandmother, Max was brave enough to confront Krampus and prove he'd learned his lesson, which is why Max had his family return and the grandmothers didn't, because she didn't when she had her chance when she was younger. Dougherty says the latter is a cynical, albeit still possible interpretation. So,
yeah.
Moving on here, according to Michael Dougherty, this is a Christmas film that is both scary and sentimental, like you said, Ricardo.
I'm telling you, it got me in the feels, man. I was getting hit.
A Christmas Carol and It's a Wonderful Life are nightmares that show you these broken characters who experience a darker side of divine intervention. They need to be scared straight. So it was done that way on purpose. Here we go. You caught onto this one. Krampus's true face is hidden underneath a Santa Claus-like mask and is never fully revealed to the audience as a choice by the filmmakers to allow viewers to make their own conclusions on his actual appearance. His eyes and mouth are only the visible traces that can be seen through parts of the mask. So yes, he was wearing a mask.
Yeah.
In the movie, Max shares some candy from his Halloween stash to comfort his cousins. Inside, you can see a lollipop identical to the one used as a weapon by the demonic child Sam from Michael Dougherty's movie Trick or Treat. So a little connection there.
Okay.
And one more Trick or Treat call out here. At the beginning of the film, the TV in the kitchen is showing a news broadcast with the scroll saying Season's Greetings. Season's Greetings was a 1996 animated short film directed by Michael Dougherty that introduced Sam, the demonic Halloween spirit from Dougherty's cult classic Trick or Treat, made in 2007. Nice. So that's it for trivia. We are going to show some love to the cast now.
Yes.
Of course, we have MJ Anthony as Max Engel. We have ya boy Adam Scott as Tom. We have the great Toni Collette as Sarah. David Ketchner, comedic actor, as Howard. We have Allison Tolman as Linda. We have Conchata Farrell as Aunt Dorothy. You guys might recognize her from, I believe, 2.5 Men and lots of other movies. Let me see who else we might recognize. Perhaps Krista Stadler as Omi, Grandmom. And I think we're just going to leave it there. Yes, we're just going to leave it there.
Yeah.
I did want to give a shout out to Luke Hawker as Krampus, the in-suit actor, and then Gideon Emery as the voice of Krampus. So we're just going to leave it there. Obviously, we want to show some love to Toni Collette. She's just such a energetic and strong actor, man or woman. Like, she gives it her all, no matter what performance she's doing. And this is a pretty ridiculous movie, but she's playing like she's terrified. And then at the very end, when she has to say goodbye to her son, like, she just pours on, just that emotion and just selling the emotional gravity of the moment. But shout out to Adam Scott, man. He anchored this thing.
Dude.
He anchored this movie. It doesn't work without him, and he plays it straight the whole way through. There's no winking to the camera, none of that. I'm saving my family. I'm doing what I got to do to defeat this thing. So shout out to Adam Scott. Like, good for him.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that everyone does really well, obviously, but Adam Scott and Toni Collette are both just playing this up as real as possible. And again, with the sheer, absurd nature of the movie, like Howard leans into that. Like Howard leans is like, are you kidding me? Like this whole thing, like this is ridiculous. You know what I mean? Even when he sees it with his own eyes, he's leaning into the silly nature of it. And Tony and Adam, they don't do that. They're very much like, no, this is a life and death situation. Tony's reactions are incredible. And Adam Scott has these moments, man, where he's saying very little and he's doing so much with his eyes. And same thing with Tony. Like in the beginning, when he goes looking for his daughter and they're in the house and he's looking at the photo, he's looking at the house destroyed, like his eyes are watering. Like he's just like he's holding it all in. And it's a great performance because you take it as a dad who is absolutely terrified and worried for his daughter, but he's trying to hold it together. And Adam Scott does a great job. I've always been a fan of Adam Scott, and obviously Toni Collette will praise to high heavens as much as we can. And like you said, like, when you look at this movie, just from a surface level, it's a ridiculous movie. It's a silly, fun creature feature, Christmas holiday, just ridiculous in itself. And everyone knows that, but Adam and Tony are like, yeah, we know that, but we're gonna go really hard, and it works. And like you said, I think anchor is a great word for Adam. Like he's an anchor, and he holds this thing down, man. And you believe him. You believe that he will do everything in his power. Like I said, he was choking me up, man. Like I remember at the theater and watching it again recently, like getting choked up when he's like, you guys got to go. Like I believed everything he was saying, and just the little things that he and Tony did. So again, the whole cast is fantastic. You know what I mean? They all do exactly what they're meant to do. But Adam and Tony, man, just bravo. Bravo for going as hard as you did in a movie like this. That was so much fun.
Alrighty, folks, we're going to start winding things down here with our closing thoughts. And I wanted to show some love to Michael Dougherty and his filmography. So there's a considerable jump from what he's done. So he did do Trick or Treat in 2007, and then he had Krampus in 2015, and then he had Godzilla King of the Monsters in 2019.
Yep.
So he went from this B movie to straight on blockbuster Godzilla King of the Monsters. So shout out to Michael Dougherty for getting that chance there. And then as far as Krampus and being a B movie and such, we hear about all these mythological characters, and up until then, there hadn't been something as large of a budget to tackle Krampus. I'm pretty sure there've been plenty of Krampus projects, and people talk about it all the time. And there's like this celebration where people dress up as Krampus. Like, yeah, I've seen it, in the online and such. But I guess what Dougherty did was he said, I'm not going to try to, how do you put it? He's not going to try to do something out there, so to speak. I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm going to lean into these clear horror influences. I'm going to lean into the B movie side of this, and then I'm going to hit you with the sentimentality as well. And good on him. He got these two great actors to play the mom and the dad, Toni Collette and Adam Scott, and it ended up being something pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. I miss when this would be a common staple in cinema, where holiday season you would get holiday movies, and whether I remember, we grew up like Home Alone, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Christmas Vacation, like the Santa Claus, Jingle All the Way. Like when the holidays came around, holiday movies would follow, and Krampus, came out in 2015, and over the years, those movies seem to happen less and less. And I'm grateful that, in 2015, we got Krampus, which is something that I never thought was something that I wanted as badly as I did until I watched it. And they had such a good time. And like, again, we're talking about a movie that was made for 15 million. And we're talking about, when you're talking about movies, especially big movies, that's a very low budget. And considering as low as the budget was to make it work in a way. And I think that's why like the comedy works. They lean into it. They know what it is, and it allows them to do these things. We talk about the idea of, Krampus wearing a mask. I thought it was brilliant. One, from a character perspective, but also you're talking about saving money, because now it's just like, hey, we don't need his face to move, we don't need all this, we don't need that, we don't need crazy CGI. We could just like, nope, we'll create a practical effect, and the only thing that will be in motion is his eyes, and we'll have a CGI tongue, and that's awesome. Again, we talk about practical things all the time, and I'm so happy we got a lot of practical things in here, and obviously CGI when it's required. Again, when he's running and jumping on the house, full CGI. But then within the same scene, when he lands by the van, it's a practical effect, and that's awesome. So there's so much for me to enjoy about it, and and hopefully people are aware, like, by calling a movie a B movie, it's not an insult to the movie. It's not by saying, oh, it's a B movie. That's not us trying to throw shade like, it's not as good as an A. No, a B movie knows sometimes that it's just a fun movie. It's meant to be different, sometimes outside the box, unorthodox, if you will, and just leave you having a good time. You know what I mean? And this is what that movie is. I'm very happy that it hits you with the sentimental stuff, because I think that every good Christmas movie should have that, to just remind us what the holiday's about, even with something as silly as a plot as this, with a supernatural entity that is taking everyone out and essentially dragging them to hell if you don't learn your lesson. Like, that's a ridiculous plot for a movie, but I love that they're still able to tie in that sentimental value that makes Christmas so special. It's one of the main reasons I love Christmas so much. So there's a lot of things that worked for it, whether it was the cast, whether it was the practical effects, whether it was the fun nature of the movie, and even the twist ending and the homage to the other Christmas movies beforehand. I think they did a great job in general and as a whole. And again, this will be part of my Christmas rotation every year. I try to recommend it to as many people as possible who haven't seen it. Luckily for me, majority of the people around me have seen it. And unfortunately for me, the people who haven't seen it, they're a little scared. They're like, it's horror. And I'm like, no, you can totally do it. It's a PG-13 horror movie. I wouldn't say it's too scary. Maybe some moments here and there, but not too scary. But I think it's worth a watch. And if it's something that, people haven't seen, I hope they take a chance on it, because, we talk about like whether it's original movies or smaller scale movies, or movies that just, stand on their own. And Krampus is one of those movies. So I'm grateful it exists. I'm happy I got to see it in the theater, and I'm always looking forward to talk about it with anybody who's willing to listen.
Yeah, and for me, just going off of what you said, that's one of the other reasons Krampus works, is because it's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of horror, a little bit of comedy, and then a little bit of a family movie. Just that sentimentality. Miracle on 34th Street. A Christmas Carol, and so on and so forth. So, alrighty. Folks, that was the Panel Bros official breakdown for Krampus. If you could please give us a like, share, and subscribe on YouTube at the Panel Bros. We'd appreciate it. The more you do that, the more it helps our reach, so people can listen to us, and people can watch us here on YouTube as well. Also, if you could please comment below in the comments, let us know how you felt about our breakdown for Krampus, and let us know how you felt about the performances. Is this your type of thing? A B movie, a Christmas horror movie? Let us know how you feel in the comments below. For Ricardo Segura, this is Anderson Marchak saying thank you for coming to the panel.